I try to be chill, but you're so hot that I'm melted. I fell right through the cracks. Now I'm trying to get back before the cool done run out. I'll be giving it my best days, and nothing's gonna stop me but divine intervention. I reckon it's again my turn to win some or learn some, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with your host, Rick Alexander. Intro music provided by Brittany Taylor. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that sort of sums up a lot of topics that I talk about here on Lionheart Radio. I've talked about it in some of our long form shows. I've talked about it on some of the morning coffees, but I think this it's a way to consciously go into our activities and the things that we're doing with full knowledge of what we're actually doing. A lot of times, and the reason I know this so well is because I find myself falling into this a lot. I always want the thing, the next thing, the one last thing, a certain amount of money. It's like once I have this, I'll be happy. Once I make this amount of money, once I just get here, once I have this next achievement, I feel like, okay, that's when I'm going to be happy. But what the inherent problem is when you do that regardless of what you get, you are still going to be you, which means whatever you are trying to get through or around or past, it's still going to be present. Now you might put a Band-Aid on said problem. A certain amount of money might help for a certain amount of time, but everywhere you go, there you'll be. And the problem is when we do this, what we're doing is we are literally agreeing not to be happy now. And that, I think, is the essence of why we should never try to put our happiness off into the future. You know, ambition is what makes the world go round. It's not money, it's not power, it's not fame. At the end of the day, these things are just a medium for ambitious people to make things happen. Diseases get cured, global crisis solved, massive wealth is accumulated, and people do it from rock bottom, only when someone has the ambition to see their plan succeed through the hardship. Likewise, personal goals of getting in great shape, completing a marathon, snagging a podium spot in a competition, all of those are byproducts of ambition. And I'm one of those people. I love to set my sights higher and higher as I push for what I want. And chances are that you are one of those people too. You love to set and achieve new goals. You love when your family, friends, followers, everyone sees the new cool thing that you're doing or how far you've come. You know, that's why today, Transformation Tuesday, is a hashtag that is literally trending on Instagram. And the honest truth is you should be proud. You've worked hard, and having something to show for your sacrifice and dedication is admirable. But unfortunately, a life of ambition, if never checked, can be a problem. You end up on what's called the hedonic treadmill. It's this idea that as you gain more, you're always going to fall back to your relative level of happiness. And so it's not that you shouldn't continue to push for more, it's that you should figure out how the fuck to be happy now, because you're always going to come back to this relative level of happiness. And so if your relative level of happiness is low, which is the reason you're striving for something, right? Because if you're putting your happiness off as you strive for something, if you're saying, well, I'm not happy now, but once I have this, I'll be happy. Well, once you have this, you're going to fall back down to your reasonable level of happiness. You know, I've caught myself falling into this trap many times before, but you have to be careful because you end up wishing your entire life away. So whenever you find yourself saying, I can't wait until blank is over, or I just need to focus on this for now, that can wait, you should check yourself. Because, you know, I've always talked about this idea of like, what are you getting up in order to get where you want? That's one of the shows that I've done here. Well, the reason I bring that up and the reason I bring this up is because you shouldn't enter into either of those things unconsciously. And I think that's one of the main problems that we see today. It's like everyone is sort of just kind of going from endless responsibility to the next responsibility to the next responsibility, and they're not entering into any of these agreements consciously. And so if you don't know what you're giving up, you don't know what you're getting, then that becomes the problem. And so if you can say to yourself, and I'm willing to work for it, and I'm willing to give up set amount of things in the process, that's okay, but what you give up in the process should not be your happiness. Because like I said, you will always fall back to your relative level of happiness. I'm a firm believer that big goals can be accomplished while still appreciating the ride. You just have to be aware, and you might have to fight for it a little bit. You might have to cultivate some of that happiness. And that's not to say that you'll never have to do things you hate along the way. Most likely the bigger the goal, the more you have to get through in order to achieve it. But this is simply a reminder not to constantly put the achievement ahead of the process. Otherwise, you're bound to end up with a life that you don't love, and that's the last thing that I want for you, because no amount of achievement, money, success, fame, name whatever arbitrary metric you think you care about is going to create any amount of lasting happiness. For the longest time, I re-enlisted in the military, and I've seen so many people do this. It's like, oh crap, well I have to get this ready, and I have to save this amount of money. I'm not ready to quit my job yet because of this. And all along, I was starting to live with one foot out. Like I started to start my businesses, and I started to do all these other things because deep down, I knew that's what I wanted to be doing. And I think we do that a lot of times. And I think there's something to be said for prudence and for saving and for getting ready to make the leap. But, I was talking to Shauna Mendelson, one of the top 5 strongest women in the world on Lionheart Radio last week. And I think that she made a really good point. And that point was, there comes a time where you just gotta fucking jump. Where you gotta know what you want and you gotta go for it. And so I think maybe this should be a good reminder to at least, like I said, whatever you're putting off, whatever you're waiting, enter into it consciously and make sure the thing that you're not putting off is your contentment. We can work hard and we should work hard and we should strive for things. But at the end of the day, I think there comes a time where you have to prioritize your happiness within the experience of what you're doing. So if you find yourself saying, once I have this, I'll be happy, this might be a good time to check yourself, to figure out what you need to do right now in order to be happy. And even if you have sacrifices that need to be made in the long term, hopefully it's not your happiness or your sanity, because I think that is a recipe for maybe not disaster, but certainly an unhappy life. And I definitely don't want that for you. I'll talk to you tomorrow on Morning Coffee.